From Northeast State Studios in Bloodville, Tennessee, this is Views of the SEC. And welcome to Views of the SEC. Trey Adams alongside my esteemed colleague, Adam Benefiel, where we are talking all SEC football. We are 4 weeks in to the college football season, and it has been nothing short of absolutely fantastic. To recap, from Week 4, Tennessee ends an 11-year losing streak to the Florida Gators after coming from behind 21-0 and scoring 38 unanswered. Auburn picks up much-needed victory over LSU and wild last-second finish 18-13. And Texas A&M moves to 4-0 with a neutral site victory over the Arkansas Razorbacks and sets up nicely to be a contender in the SEC West alongside Alabama. Adam, let's start with the Tennessee-Florida game. The Volunteers finally break through against the Gators. 11 long years, and to come back like that, one of the most incredible second halves I think I've ever seen. Adam, give me some of your thoughts on this game.
I'm not going to lie to you. Watching the first half, I was sitting there thinking that I was going to have to start preparing for this podcast by myself.
Me too.
I was very concerned, but there's a big play that happened in the first drive of the third quarter, which they alluded to on the broadcast, Vern and Gary. Whenever Josh drops through that ball, and it was a little underthrown, and it was on the back of the linebacker, and he finally had a receiver make a play for him. He finally had a receiver go get the ball and not drop it. Yeah, the drive ended with an interception after his arm was thrown, but I think that kind of woke the team up. Mm-hmm. And after that, I mean, the crowd got into it. Until the fourth quarter, Florida had 8 yards of offense or something crazy like that.
It was the most insane defense I think I've ever seen for Tennessee. And in this stage, you needed this game. I mean, fans were ready to fire Butch Jones after the first half, and at the end of the game, they were ready to build a statue of him. I mean, it's just, it's a range of emotions, and you have to handle yourself. And Tennessee came out and did what they needed to do. Big victory. And so now let's talk about Auburn over LSU this weekend. Les Miles has been fired because of this. I mean, what are your initial thoughts on this particular game?
I think it was played a lot in the style that I thought it was going to. I predicted last week that Auburn was going to put up 31. I was clearly wrong. They didn't score a touchdown. But yeah, I mean, I was really concerned for the head coach for Auburn, his job, and I failed to realize the backlash that would have come if LSU lost that game. Mm-hmm. I guess you got to say that neither of those two teams are very good. Mm-hmm. But yeah, Auburn had to have that win, and especially for Gus Malzahn, he needed to have that win to at least keep his job for another week.
Mm-hmm. Les Miles, his time management, his clock management has been, as you could say, questionable over the years, but this one costed him this time.
Yeah, absolutely. In a way, I think they kind of got a raw deal, because anytime you have that, the clock starts on the ready for play signal from the ref. I think that there needs to be some kind of way to where the quarterback knows when that's going to start. So mm-hmm. I did think that was kind of a crappy way to lose. But if you're LSU, you can't put yourself in that position in the first place. Mm-hmm. I mean, you should be a significantly better team than Auburn, mm-hmm. based on the stars that you have at your positions, based on the athletes that you have. Once again, it goes back into the same thing for Les Miles. You can have all the athletes and as good of a defense as you want, but if you don't have a quarterback to do anything with it, then what are you doing out there?
Mm-hmm. Very true. Very quickly, let's talk about Texas A&M. Of course, your Aggies moving to 4-0, big victory over Arkansas. Adam, just give me some quick thoughts about that.
Well, I was really frustrated during the first half, and I think both teams could say that they were frustrated because they both left points on the field. It was kind of a sloppy game early on with turnovers. It kind of cleaned up later. But the way A&M has not allowed a point in the third quarter this year. Mm-hmm. And I think that's very telling to the way that they're playing, is that, okay, like, you'll hang around in the first half, but as soon as the second half starts, that's when we're going to start to impose our will. And that's something that A&M hasn't done since they've been in the SEC.
And to put one thing in perspective, Arkansas, that one drive in the third quarter where they were stopped 4 or 3 times on the goal line, and then pretty much the very next play, Trevor Knight throws a 92-yard touchdown pass. Huge. It's a big victory for Texas A&M. We look atop the SEC standings. Tennessee sits atop on the East, and Texas A&M sits atop on the West. We try not to be biased around here.
No, not at all.
But both of our teams are leading in the SEC. It's amazing to think about. And the SEC Player of the Week this week, definitely Josh Dobbs. First half was not so good, but the second half, he played terrific. He had a 319-yard game, 4 touchdowns against one of the nation's best defenses, as well as running for 80 yards and a touchdown. This was a truly great performance that could propel Dobbs and the Volunteers into legitimate threats to win the SEC East as well as the SEC Championship and maybe perhaps a college football playoff spot. So let's move on to the game of the week. This week is Tennessee versus Georgia. The Volunteers will be traveling to Athens. It is a CBS 3:30 kickoff. This is a very, very important game for both teams. Georgia comes off a blowout. They got destroyed against Ole Miss. Granted, Ole Miss needed that victory, and they played as well as anybody I've seen this year. Chad Kelly, terrific performance. This is big. Adam, let's talk about this game.
Yeah, it's a big game. It's important for Georgia to kind of come back and save face a little bit after getting, like you said, annihilated by Ole Miss. Georgia's going to be really good in the coming years. Mm-hmm. This year, while they have some really good players, they have really high potential, it's going to be hard for them to compete with some of the upper echelon teams because all you got to focus on is let's make this freshman quarterback beat us. Either you're having a true freshman quarterback forcing him to beat you, which against a lot of SEC defenses is going to be tough, or if they switch to Grayson Lambert. I mean, we've kind of seen that song and dance before. So either way, you're not terribly concerned at this point in time about the passing offense. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I don't think this is going to be particularly close, but I do think it is important for Georgia to kind of get some semblance of momentum back into their program because that was pretty rough last week for them.
Mm-hmm. Of course, we talk about Tennessee. They come off probably what is the biggest victory in the program in the last 10 years. I mean, does this, if you're Tennessee right now and you've just beaten Florida for the first time in 11 years, does that make you want to go out and just destroy everybody for the rest of the season? Does that give you the confidence that you needed?
I think it gives you the confidence that you can beat any team. The only thing that you have to worry about regarding Tennessee is, honestly, their tendency so far this season. Play against a good team, they play well. After a slow start, they play against a poor team, they play at their competition.
Yeah.
So Tennessee, much like A&M going into this week, and then 2 weeks from now, we have a pretty big game involving our two teams. But this next week, you kind of have to focus at the task at hand and take care of your business because what happens in the future could totally be derailed if you don't take this game seriously. Because no matter how bad a team you're playing is in any given week, you can be beat. It's happened time and time again.
You're exactly right. I mean, you look at Tennessee right now, they've gotten through the first game of this 4-game stretch that, I mean, it's just absolutely, that's gut-wrenching to have to play Florida, Georgia, Texas A&M, and Alabama. If Tennessee wins this game Saturday, the SEC has all eyes on Texas A&M, Alabama, and Tennessee, which all three have to play each other 3 straight weeks. In some way, Tennessee plays Texas A&M next week. Tennessee plays Alabama the next weekend, and then Texas A&M and Alabama. This game is a huge implications for the East because if Georgia wins this, the SEC East is once again wide open.
Absolutely. I think Tennessee pretty well has the East in hand. I think they already beat their biggest competition, and from this point on, it's just limiting the blemishes. If I can look a little bit into the future to not follow my advice because I'm not a college football player, I think this is the stretch where Alabama loses their 2 games.
You could be exactly right.
I think coming into Tennessee, I think they're gonna run into a team that is inspired, that is tired of losing to Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're gonna beat Alabama, and while they have that game, A&M has a bye week, and they're just gonna be waiting for a bruised and beaten Alabama team. Watch out. That's all I'm gonna say is watch out.
I mean, and this is where Butch Jones has constantly talked about look forward, one game at a time, and you've got to do that. Just a couple news and notes before we make the prediction here. Nick Chubb, he went down with a injury Saturday in the second quarter. Had a sprained ankle, and may not be 100% on Saturday. And they also made some critical mistakes to lose to Ole Miss, so they really need Chubb to be healthy on Saturday in order to make this a game, because I think if Chubb is out, that really limits the offense. And Georgia's offense is not very good as it is, so you have to make yourself, you got to make some plays,
Right.
Even without Chubb. So it's going to be important for Georgia to be able to move the ball through the air, on the ground with Sonny Michel, among other running backs. So, Adam, we've talked about it. Give me your prediction.
I think it's gonna stay relatively within reach throughout most of the game. I think Tennessee will ultimately pull away, but I wouldn't be surprised if Georgia came out, inspired, playing in front of the home crowd, playing between the hedges. So I'll take Tennessee 31-17.
And my prediction, 31 Tennessee, Georgia 20. After a major victory against Florida to end a long losing streak, look for the Volunteers to come prepared in Athens and play well against a questionable Georgia team that pretty much got throttled in Oxford. I think the focus, Tennessee will have a lot of focus, especially after last week's victory. And we move to our final part of the show, some score predictions, some quick hitters here. Let's start with the quick hitters. Arkansas, Alcorn State. Who do you got?
I'll tell you what. Arkansas has a quarterback. That Austin Allen, he is so tough. That dude got beaten beyond belief and still played the entire game. I'll take Arkansas 38-0.
Texas A&M versus South Carolina.
It could be a trap game, but I don't think it will be. I'll take A&M 98-0.
Me too. I've got A&M 35, South Carolina 14, and I've got Arkansas 42, Alcorn State 0. Missouri versus LSU. Les Miles has been fired. Missouri almost beat Georgia. Can Missouri pull the upset?
I think they can. I mean, you saw they put up like 400 points against poor Delaware State last week.
Yeah, they did.
Oh, man. I agree with you. I'm going to take Missouri. It's going to be kind of low scoring. I'm going to take Missouri 21-17.
I've got Missouri 27-21. LSU makes a huge mistake, in my opinion, firing Les Miles this early in the season. Missouri bounces on that. A couple quick hitters here. Again, Florida versus Vanderbilt. Florida bouncing back from the Tennessee loss.
Absolutely. Florida 42, Vanderbilt 10.
Florida 38, Vanderbilt 10 on my part. Auburn versus Louisiana Monroe. Interesting game, to say the least. Who you got?
Gus Malzahn saved his job for one more week last week. He does not do it this week. Give me Louisiana Monroe 21-10.
Upset.
Yep.
That is going to be a very, very interesting game, but I get Auburn 24-14 over Louisiana Monroe. Alabama versus Kentucky.
Kentucky just shouldn't even show up for this game. They should just we're sick. We can't do it, y'all. Alabama 52-3. I'll agree with you.
52-3 on mine. And Ole Miss versus Memphis, final game of the week.
Ole Miss gets revenge for last year. They win 38-7.
Ole Miss 34-13. Adam, any final thoughts?
I'm just happy that football's back.
Me too. Month of September was awesome in college football. So that does it for Views of the SEC. For Adam Benefiel, the Aggie Warrior, I'm Trey Adams signing off. Goodbye, everybody.
This program is a presentation of the Communications Department of Northeast State Community College and is produced as part of the student learning experience. The content of this program is produced through student participation and does not necessarily reflect the opinions and views held by the school.
The music today was provided by Jason Shaw at audioaudix.com.